Hey guys, I am the Comics Kid 2099 and I am here to review the first season of the 2004 reimagining of Battlestar Galactica. As I mentioned in my rant video that I put up last week, I started watching this show and I'm really digging it. If you haven't seen this show, I would suggest that you go ahead and watch it. I probably am not going to get into a whole lot of spoilers here. There's just one spoiler that I have in mind that I will be talking about. So if you haven't seen it and you want to go ahead and hear the rest of this review, that's probably going to be okay. This is going to be a mostly non-spoiler review. But I will go ahead and say, if you're on the fence about this show, if for some reason you haven't watched it over the past 10 years, I would go ahead and say, go watch it. It's probably worth your time. I imagine that most everyone is going to like this show. I have been really enjoying this show so far. I will say, usually when I read a book or watch a TV show or watch a movie, a big factor for me is, are the characters likable? If the characters are not likable, if they are just scumbags who I cannot get behind in any way, usually that is going to make me stop watching the TV show or stop reading the book, or if it's a movie, I'm probably not going to watch the movie again and again. If the characters are unlikable, that is a huge factor in me deciding if I am going to appreciate the show or not. This is a really great example where most of the characters are very unlikable, and I don't care. I feel like I can still appreciate that these characters feel like very real characters, even though almost all of them are very flawed characters. For example, characters like Colonel Ty, Starbuck, Commander Adama, and President Roslin, all of them are at times extremely unlikable, and I still feel like I can understand where they are coming from, even though all of them do things that make me say, that is kind of a jerk move right there. I still feel like A, it makes sense for them to do what they are doing in that situation, and B, it makes sense for that character to do what that character is doing. This isn't a situation where I'm saying, oh come on, why didn't you do this, this, or that? It would have made a lot more sense for you to do anything else in that situation. Within the context of this show, it makes a lot of sense that these characters are making the decisions that they are making. Even when a little more than half of the characters in this show are jerkholes, I can still kind of get behind them at times because even though they are flawed, I understand why they are doing what they are doing. Far too often, a show or a movie or a comic book or whatever will give us a flawed character, but I cannot get behind that character. The X-Men comics of the last, 5 years really should have taken a leaf out of Battlestar Galactica's book, because here lately, a lot of the X-Men have really hated each other to the point where they have been split up into two different teams. And Team Wolverine really hates Team Cyclops, and Team Cyclops really hates Team Wolverine. And it wasn't really done in a believable way. At the end of the day, I really felt like the writers wanted to split these teams off into separate groups, but they didn't really know how they wanted to do it, so they just had one of the characters act like a holier-than-thou type, and they had another character start acting wildly out of character, making really rash decisions that basically ends up turning him into an outlaw. I feel like if the X-Men writers had taken a close look at Battlestar Galactica and tried to mimic the way the writers on Battlestar Galactica write their characters, they really could have come up with a fresh way of making the X-Men hate each other, while also not resulting in fans of the X-Men hating certain characters within the teams. Something that I talked about last week in my rant video was the idea of taking an old TV show, Battlestar Galactica from the late 70s, and turning it into this really dark, grim and gritty show that bears almost zero resemblance to the old show. I still maintain that there was really no reason to actually call this show Battlestar Galactica. I think it is so radically different from the original show, they could have given it an entirely different name, and I don't think that they would have had that much more of an audience who is familiar with the old Battlestar Galactica. But whatever, I talked about that last week, and that's not really a problem here, I just find it a little perplexing. Over the course of the 3-hour miniseries and Season 1, there were really only two major plot points that I had a problem with. In the 3-hour miniseries, we are introduced to Gaius Baltar, who is a really popular, really famous scientist who accidentally helps the Cylons destroy most of humanity across the 12 colonies of Kobol. And throughout the 3-hour miniseries, he is trying to keep his cool, trying not to reveal that he had a major part in the destruction of humanity, and at one point, this Cylon that is basically in his head, it's a hallucination for him that no one else can see, this Cylon tells him that there is a device that is on the bridge of the Battlestar Galactica, and he doesn't know how he's going to reveal to everyone, hey, look, there's a device, we may need to get rid of that. So he picks some random dude and he decides, I am going to tell everyone that that guy is a Cylon pretending to be a human. And then he does this, everyone is like, okay, let's listen to the doctor. So they leave that guy behind on some space station, and then at the very end of the 3-hour miniseries, we find out that, oh, that guy really was a Cylon. Wow, that's really, really lucky and really convenient for Gaius Baltar that he just happened to pick the one dude who actually was a Cylon. I found that plot point to be extremely convenient, and the only reason that I don't hate it more than I actually do is because they do reference this later on. They don't actually reference the fact that he basically just guessed that he was a Cylon, but they do reference that they left that dude behind, and that Gaius Baltar claimed that he had the ability to tell who was a Cylon and who wasn't. That becomes a major plot point throughout Season 1, so I'm glad that they actually referenced that and picked it up and ran with it throughout Season 1. I just think that it's really stupid that he picks some random dude who just happens to be a Cylon. In reality, I think he probably would have picked someone who ended up not being a Cylon. I feel like this was just to make us not completely hate Gaius Baltar, and after he's already accidentally handed over humanity to the Cylons, I feel like it's a little late for that, and we're already hating him a little bit for his betrayal of humankind. And the second plot point that I wanted to talk about, at the end of this season, President Roslin basically betrays Commander Adama and all of the military by convincing Starbuck to go on a separate mission that she was not ordered to go on, and basically abandon the rest of the fleet. This causes a huge rift between her and the military, and the repercussions of this is felt all throughout Season 2 even. I'm about 5 or 6 episodes into Season 2, and they are still picking up the pieces from this particular plot point. Basically, Roslin does this because she suddenly has a spiritual reawakening where she believes everything in the old scriptures to be true, and she decides that she needs Starbuck's help in order to make the scriptures become actual truth. I would have been okay with this if Roslin had been a religious person all throughout Season 1, but it seems like on up until the second to last episode, she doesn't really show any signs of being religious at all, and in fact she's really good buddies with Commander Adama up until the second to last episode, and then out of nowhere, it feels like these guys needed something really huge in order to split the entire fleet and create plot points throughout Season 2. So they decide to have Roslin suddenly become religious, and now she's willing to betray the fleet, and it doesn't really feel like this show has earned it. I feel like if Roslin had shown a few more signs of being more religious throughout this season, I would have easily been able to have bought that she would betray Commander Adama and have one of his soldiers go off on a mission that he did not okay. Overall, I'm really digging this show. It may get to a point where in Season 2 or 3 I may start to enjoy it less, but right now, I'm really digging this show. I may be the only person in the world who has not watched this show at this point, since it started about 10 years ago, but so far I'm really digging it, and if you haven't seen this show, I would recommend that you do so. And that's about all I have to say here, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys tomorrow with a different kind of video. So until then, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.